just over 10 years ago, I was reading a lot about farming and agriculture, and I found that a lot of practices were that I couldn't really agree with. They were using a lot of genetically modified seeds, and I found there were different results the farmers were experiencing, and also there was a lot of cloning, and so I didn't think this was very healthy for us to consume. So and at the same time, I was also reading other articles about seed banks around the world, like in Syria and in Iraq, that were being looted. So a lot of these old ancient plants where the seeds that were being kept no longer was there, and I found it. I was very kind of stressed out by it. I really want to have all these plants still available to us. So I started collecting my own seeds, and especially the organic ones. So I went to when I travel, I'll collect a lot of seeds when I traveled all over the world, and I started collecting organic seeds that I hope one day that I'll be able to grow when I have my own garden. Well, I started about 5 years ago because I was renting a house which actually had a garden, and I decided that let's use the garden to start experimenting with the seeds I've collected throughout the years. And so I started planting herbs like Italian basil and rosemary, but I found that the herbs that are not local were harder to grow because it's not conducive for this environment. And so I started slowly switching from herbs that I collect from overseas to actually herbs and spices locally. And I'll just go to the I'll go to the market and find vegetables and herbs that I already had the root, and I'll use that to plant in the soil. And I found that it grew really well here, and so I started cooking a lot more local food because of that, yes. Well, my garden, because in Singapore we have very limited space, and I feel very privileged to have a garden now that I can actually do my own plants. So I am very selective with the plants I grow, but I'm still learning. So initially when I started, I said the only plants I'll grow is the ones that I can eat. So I only grow fruits and vegetables. But I also found that some fruits and vegetables require pollination, and I don't want to do it myself, so I have to also start growing now plants that have flowers that will attract these pollinators like butterflies and bees, right? So I have a bit of combination, but my priority is always stuff that I can consume, right? And of course, in this region, we love to eat our curries and our spicy food, so I have a lot of the local herbs and spices I grow in my garden, and then of course the fruits that we eat here locally as well, tropical fruits. Yes. I think it's really hard to choose one because I like to consume all of them. But the one that I guess is very close to my heart is my kind of baby rambutan tree, because I carried the seedling back from a friend's place in Sabah. And why it's so special to me is because my friend told me this is, I love rambutan, but I hate it when the flesh gets stuck to the seed. Oh, sorry, the seed gets stuck to the flesh. And so this apparently, the seed will not stick to the flesh. So I'm very excited when the tree finally starts fruiting, I'll be able to have the rambutan that I like to eat. Yes. I wouldn't say tips, but I think the key thing for any gardener is that you have to be willing to kind of get your hands dirty, right? You have to go in there and dig with your hands, and also of course do things like get earthworms in there so that there's a lot of aeration in the soil, so it's not, the water is not going to be clogged there. And then just try to give the best nutrients you have to your plants, right? And so I do a lot of composting to try and add nutrients back into the soil. And I also try to, I have dogs, right? So I try to also get rid of the waste. I use black soldier flies to kind of consume all their waste, and eventually they will also be a feed that I can feed to my chickens that will also be healthier, and then their feces will also fertilize my garden, right? So I just like to kind of slowly build an ecosystem, and hopefully they will be self-sustaining, by the time I progress, and then you have very healthy plants that you've been there every step of the way, I guess, and really it becomes yours, right? So it's like your own little babies that you get to partake in. So that's what I would say my advice would be. Yes. Well, I think honestly, to this day, we, in Singapore, we are such foodies. We love our food so much, but we also go to a lot of places like buffets, and we waste a lot of food, and I feel like that's such a tragedy, I think, in a sense, and I think where there's so much, so much food, that people are so lacking in food, that we really need to watch how much we eat, right? Then also besides that, a lot of the food we're eating, we're consuming a lot, but we don't know how nutritious this food is, because we don't know the source of our produce. We don't know what they put in the soil when they're farming. So even though we can consume a lot, it may not be healthy for us, and it may not give us the nutrients that we need, So I feel like I would challenge our viewers to know what are we putting into our mouth and into our bodies, and really look at the source of your food and what goes into the food and how it's produced.